Welcome everybody to the show. My name is Devin Riley. This is probably one of my first few YouTube videos, and I was a bareback rider for the last 10 years in my life. And I remember when I first started riding, there wasn't a lot of videos on instructing on how to get into rodeo or how to prepare yourself, whether it be gear, taping your arm, how to enter, which rodeos to hit, which horses to get on when you're first starting out, any of those kind of things. So I figured I would just make a YouTube channel and explain some of these things that I'm passionate about, whether it be riding bucking horses, hunting, fishing, things outdoors, and everything in between. So today, I want to show you guys how to tape your arm for bareback riding. And I'm going to show you in two different videos. One's going to be how to tape your arm if you don't have a brace. And the second video is going to be how to tape your arm with a brace. So when you're getting started, all you need is going to be 2 rolls of athletic tape. And this is Johnson & Johnson. I don't know if they make tape anymore. This is the good stuff, and all you bareback riders out there are gonna hate me for using Johnson & Johnson on this video. But any sort of athletic tape, you need 2 rolls, and it's about, I would say, inch and a half wide. So you need 2 of those. Next, you're gonna need 1 roll of elasticon, and this is probably a 3-inch roll. You can make it work with 1 inch, but I would say either 2 or 3-inch roll of elasticon will get you by. Then you're also going to need a knife or a pair of scissors to cut the elasticon. So when I'm getting started taping, what I'm going to do is I want to make a sleeve starting kind of at a little bit below the elbow and go down to the wrist. And what we're going to make here is we're going to make a sleeve that the elasticon can attach onto. So when I'm doing this, I like to start at the top, but you can kind of start either way, top or bottom. So when I'm going, and also behind the camera, I got my good buddy, Zach Phillips. He's also a bronc rider, bareback rider, and he's a bareback riding fool. But anyway, so what I like to do is I like to kind of get that kind of an angle, and then just, see if I can cut this out. So break it off, and you don't want it to be too tight. If you start feel like you're losing circulation, you're doing it wrong. So what I like to do, if I feel like it's a little tight, I'll kind of relieve it, and then just lightly set it on there. Like I said, the main purpose of this is to make a sleeve. So with that, I'll just slowly work my way down the arm, and I'll cut the last piece of tape around. I'll cut it kind of in half. So with that, I'll lay it back on there like so. And like I said, you just don't want it tight on there. So I'll just keep doing that. I'll work my way down. This might take a little bit. This tape's a little old. All right, so now that I've taped down my arm, now when I get to the wrist, what I've always liked to do is that your wrist is a point that really flexes a lot when you're riding bucking horses, and you want to stabilize that as much as possible to to protect your wrist. You want to make it a little bit more secure so that if you do get cocked one way or the other, that your wrist isn't going to give out. So what I've always done is I'll get that at the bottom of my tape job, and I will wrap that wrist about, I've always said 7 times because 7's a lucky number. So I'll go around that. Let's see here. Go one more time. So now I got it around my wrist, and then also with that tape being on the arm, I'll kind of pull it and it'll kind of stretch down and be more of a sleeve. So then now it's not biting me, pinching me, any of that or the other. But then now what I'll do is I'll slowly work my way back up the arm and just have 2 layers on that sleeve. So I'll do that, and I'll show you once I got that all done. All right, so now I just worked up my way up the wrist, and you can see how it is a sleeve. I don't know, Zach, zoom in on that a little bit, and you can kind of see how, it's symmetrical, the tape's evenly spaced around. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna work up to my middle knuckle there on my thumb, or that top knuckle right there on my thumb. And what that's gonna prevent, I don't want my wrist to tilt down like that. I wanna make sure that I can lift this way on my rigging when you're lifting up, but you never want it to be taken away from you and cocked downwards. So what I'm gonna do is tape up this way, so it's gonna prevent it from doing that. So what you wanna do is when you get your tape, I like to start at the base of the wrist, about like that, and then you're gonna wrap it around and work your way up, just like that. Now, instead of doing half lengths, I'm gonna maybe do quarter lengths of distance between the tape. So instead of going half like that, I'm gonna maybe go about right there. So that's spacing all the way up. And just wrap it around and keep, and everything you do with taping, you wanna make sure it's evenly distributed. So if it's all taped in one spot here, it's gonna start pinching there. So you wanna make sure it's even working all the way up your hand as well. So it's gonna start encompassing all this part of your hand and then up your thumb. So I'm just gonna keep working my way up my thumb. Do another one there. Wrap it around. And like I said, don't go down, keep working way up your hand. All right, guys, so now I got the tape job up to that point in the hand. And you see the tape kind of made a point. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna finish locking it in place. So to do that, we secured it going up this way. Now we're gonna go around the front. So I put the tape like this, and then we're gonna wrap it around the thumb, but you don't want that big 1-inch piece of tape going around your thumb. So what I do is I bite it, I fold it over, so you can see how it really thins it down, wrap it around. Now I'm gonna squeeze my hand like I'm in the rigging and really flex that hand. So now I pull this back and then down to the center of the bottom of my hand, right where the hand meets your forearm, and then I cut it off right there. So now it kind of really secures that tape job we did going up the thumb, and then it really locks it where I can't go forward. So now I'll probably do one more. I'll maybe have 1 to 3 of these on there just to really secure it. But you don't want more than that because you want to be able to get your hand in your glove. So get that going around, bite it, lock it down, close your hand like you're getting in the rigging, pull it down there, tape it off. Now the next thing is you want to finish securing your wrist. So now we've taped up the thumb, we've gone around it. Now we need to secure it from kind of, you see how your wrist can do still a lot of motion even taped. Now we just kind of want to stiffen it up a little bit more so that when you're riding, it doesn't move. You want it to be solid because you want your arm to be strong and secure, but you also want to take away as much jerking motion or as much strain on it as possible. So what I do is, I don't know exactly if you want to get over my shoulder. So like I'll put this tape here and put it right in the middle where your hand meets, it's pretty much right at the wrist. And then what I'll do is I'll spin this up, try to get it, you want to make almost like a little rope out of it. So spin this up. And then what we're gonna do with this twisted tape is you're gonna feel in between your hand and right at your wrist, there's like a slot. And what you wanna do is you wanna place this twisted tape in that slot, and then you wanna feel the slot in the back part of your wrist here, and then sit that tape in there, and then go around a couple times. I'd say maybe 2 is what I always did, about like that. So now that your tape is in that slot of your wrist, now when you go to secure it, it's gonna be more locked in place. So now to finish it off, I'll just wrap it a couple times, make sure that's secure, and then I'll tape it off. So now that the wrist is taped, and I'm ready to rock and roll. All right, next, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put some tape or elasticon around the bicep. It doesn't really matter which one you use. When I first started, I'd use Johnson & Johnson tape, and you just take a wrap, cut it off, tape a wrap, cut it off, work it up. Same thing as like what we did for the wrist, but working up your bicep. And you wanna make sure when you're doing your bicep is that you're flexed the whole time. Because if you're not, and you get it too tight with your arm relaxed, and you go to ride and you flex, it's not gonna have any room for that muscle to flex inside the tape and squeeze so you can lift properly and ride good. So instead of using tape, I'm just gonna use elasticon, but like I said, it doesn't really matter. So I'll stick it on, and like I said, you need to flex. Once you get a good grip, wrap it around, flex, pull it up, just like so. What we're doing is we're making another sleeve on your bicep for the next elasticon to go on. And at the end of the video, I'll explain why we're taping. So, put this next one on. Anyway, so you're gonna wanna get there, and I guess I should probably put one more right here, and I'm gonna cut one more quick. All right, so I got the third one cut. I'm gonna wrap this one around. And like I said, you wanna have them evenly spaced. So that's what it's gonna look like. Like I said, you can either use tape or elasticon for this. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna take elasticon and we're gonna secure your wrist. Or excuse me, you're not gonna secure your wrist, you're gonna secure the elbow. And so what I do is I cut 2 pieces of elasticon. They're about 2.5 feet in length. And what I do is I fold it in half. And what I like to do is, like, remember like I said at the beginning, everything needs to be evenly spaced. So here, I'll put this elasticon right in the middle of my tricep. And then what I wanna do is I'll throw this side over. And what I wanna do is I wanna put my arm in the shape of whatever position I want it in when I'm riding. And so what I'll do is I'll stretch that elasticon, come up over top. You know, you can see my arm slightly bent. And that's how it's looking there from the front. And I'll take this next piece of elasticon. And with this piece, you want to do this one closest to your body last, because you want to suck that elbow in to your body. Because if your elbow ever gets out when you're riding, you're going to lose all your power and you're going to lose all your lift. So I'm going to pull that elbow in, pull the elasticon over, and wrap it around. So now you can see I have a slight bend, but if I straighten my arm, the elasticon's going to stretch and support your elbow while riding. And I guess I should add, the reason why we tape our elbows and we tape our wrists and our hands and all this stuff is like the same reason why you wear a car seat. I guess a car seat belt, excuse me, why you wear a seat belt, because when you're in an accident, if you're not wearing a seat belt, you take a hard hit, your body's gonna be messed up. But if you wear a seat belt, you get in an accident, it's gonna slow down that momentum and all that wear and tear in the joints. So when that horse gives you a good solid yank, this elasticon's gonna take a brunt of that jerk, and it's gonna take a lot of that power away, and it's just gonna save your elbow and wear and tear on your body. So it's gonna save your joints, your muscles, your tendons, your ligaments, all that stuff for the long haul. Because bareback riders, as we know, if you have a 10-year, 20-year career, that's a long time as a bareback rider. So we want to make sure that we can keep our arm good for as long as possible. So now this next piece, I'm going to do pretty much the exact same thing. Fold it in half. And like I said, you can do 1, 2, or 3 pieces, whatever works best for you. But then here, I'm not going to go over the same piece. I'm going to come slightly up the elbow and cover half of that previous piece. And like I said, do the outside one first, have it come over the top, and I'm going to follow the middle of that first one, and I'm going to come down closer to the elbow. So that first one, I want to make sure I go higher towards the wrist. The second one, I want to come a little bit lower. And the reason being, if I have it in the same spot, it's going to push on that same spot on your elbow or your wrist or your forearm. And if it's in that same spot, you're going to get like forearm splints, and it hurts like hell. And you're not going to want to ride the spur board. You're not going to want to get on the bucket machine. You're definitely not going to get on a bareback horse. So if you spread out that pressure and that tension, it's going to feel a heck of a lot better. And that's the whole purpose of the sleeves, to help spread out that pressure. So then with this one, same kind of thing. You're going to want to pull in towards your body and then go over top of that last one and wrap it around. So now you see how it's all lined up. So now when I relax my arm, it just wants to pull into my body. So when I'm getting on a bareback horse, I'm setting this forearm on my oblique, my hands where my rigging would be, and then my shoulders back, and I'm in proper riding form. I'm ready to go. So now that we got the elasticon on, what I like to do is I like to make a couple more X's on top of the elasticon. And what this is going to do is kind of, one, protect the elasticon, but then also add a little bit more rigidity or stiffen it up a little bit. And it's just kind of an insurance policy on top of the elasticon, because if it stretches too much and it's overly stretched, now you pretty much tape for nothing. So I like to keep that little bit of bend in the elasticon so it doesn't get worked in and overly stretched. And what I'll do is I'll make an X, but it's not going to be like, so I'm going to make an X. I'll show you the first one. So here, I like to start this way. So I'll start, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to work up my bicep. And you see how I'm cutting that previous piece of tape in half? Just like that. And what I like to do is I like to work all the way up the bicep. And the same thing, you want it spread out so it doesn't pinch or bite on the bicep or your forearm. Do a couple more, and then I'll do the other side. And when I'm doing this, I don't want to go past my funny bone, because there I don't really think it does much. I just want to make sure I hit that, get close to the funny bone, and I call her good. So get there. So there's one side, and then this next side, how I do that, it's like this side I started at the elbow and worked up towards my bicep, and this side I'm going to start at mid-forearm and work up towards my elbow. So I like to cover that elasticon, come over, cut it off. Do the same thing. And this is the way I did it. Some other guys might maybe figure eight it, which that's fine, as long as you evenly distribute the tape so it doesn't bite and cause a forearm splint. Like I said, that'll sour a guy real quick. So I'm gonna keep working my way up the arm. And then I'll kind of give it I'll kind of test the tape and give it a little bit of straighten, because I want my elbow and I want my arm to straighten when I ride. The only thing I want to do is I don't want it to hyperextend, and you also don't want it to be perfectly 90 either, because now you have no give. The whole purpose of this is, like I said, to take shock out of the arm and to make it easier on your muscles and joints. So with that, I'll keep working up towards my elbow here. Do a couple more. Do one more for good measure. Now, once I got this one on, so now you kind of see how it's crossed on there. I can still get my arm straight, but it still wants to go back into that position for me riding. Now to finish it out, you can either do like we did at the beginning and wrap it around and work your way down, taping it up to cover up your X. And what we're gonna do here is we're just gonna pretty much make another sleeve here and another sleeve here to, one, make sure that the tape and elasticon don't slip and come undone in the middle of your ride, and just to kind of protect it so when you go to slide it into your shirt before you ride, it slips in a little bit easier. So like I said, you can either do one piece at a time going down and coming up, or you can just wrap it. So I guess I'll just wrap it just for make it simple, but this is what, it doesn't have to be pretty, but when I was riding, I always liked it to look good. So finish out, take them down here at the bottom. So now that's secure. And now I'm gonna go work my way up. Start at the bottom so that you don't come undone. So now it's really secure. And there you go. Push that down. Make sure that it's ready to rock and roll. And that is how you tape your arm without a brace to ride a bucking horse. So, just like that, slide it in your shirt, slide and ride. All right guys, in this section, I'm gonna show you how to tape your arm for bareback riding with a brace. So if you watch the beginning of this video, I showed you how to make a sleeve, tape your wrist, go up the thumb, go around the thumb, and then also securing the wrist. So with a brace, you don't have to make as big of a sleeve, because the brace, as you see, is a sleeve. It has a sleeve, and it also has a sleeve for your bicep. So with this, when you get started, what I like to do is I like to just make a half a sleeve, tape around the wrist, tape back up, so you got your 2 layers. And then I'll tape up my thumb, wrap around it twice or 3 times, and then I'll secure the wrist like I showed you in the beginning of the video. Now, with your brace, you probably went to a guy, I think there's a guy in Canada and there's some guys in Texas that make braces. And what they usually do is they get a cast of your arm so that your brace specifically fits you. So, and there's different settings you can set your brace on. I like my brace to almost go straight. because if you have it too bent, you don't have any room for your arm to give and go straight so that you can adjust during your ride. We also don't want it to hyperextend either. And so what this brace does, it kind of protects your joints, just like we talked about at the beginning, but also it doesn't let your wrist or your elbow bend in different directions. It'll only let you go back and forth when you're riding. So it protects your inner elbow, and I think it'll kind of protect your nerves down there as well. And it just all around secures your arm. So after I get this all taped, my next thing I want to do is I want to properly get the brace set on my arm. So what I like to do, I'll put my hand in the brace, and now I want to find out where I want it set. So what I always like to do for a rule of thumb is wherever my funny bone is, I kind of like that lined up with these hinges. So I'll kind of slide that, and then also you got to play around a little bit when you first get a brace to figure out how you want your hand to sit in the brace, because if you have it one way and then you go to ride, it's going to make the brace feel funny. So I always got the hinge by my funny bone. Then I would get it roughly on my arm where I thought, and I'd put my hand where I was going to be riding, and I'd check it and make sure that I can still straighten my arm. If I needed to move the brace to a different spot, I would do it, and then I would check. And once I found out where I wanted the brace to be, next what I do is now I want to secure it. And like I said, there's a lot of guys going up and down the road that tape their braces different. This is just how I did it. So like I said earlier, be a student, learn, find out what works best for you. So this is what worked best for me. Now, another thought is I want this brace to be flush on my forearm, because any gaps, it's going to create a pinch point, and now you're going to get another shin splint problem. So make sure that the brace is flush. And now, if you look here, I got 4 pieces of elasticon cut. The shortest piece is going to go up around the wrist. And so what I did is what I'll do is I fold it in half like before. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here at the front of my brace, and I'm going to put half of the elasticon on there. And what I'm going to do, if you guys can see this, if I can balance, then I'm going to wrap around here and I'm going to secure that brace there, because I don't want it to shift forward or back in the middle of my ride. So with that, and then I'm going to suck it down pretty tight, because that brace is going to have some room to wiggle. So right now my brace can't move forward or back. Now I'm also wanting to do this at the top of the brace. So now I got another piece of elasticon. Let me back up. This first piece was maybe about 1 foot long. This piece is maybe about 1.5 feet, 18 inches. So I'm going to fold that one again. And I'm going to want half the elasticon on the brace and half of it on my skin, so that it sticks to the brace and to my bicep. So I'm going to wrap it around, and then like before, I want this as flush to my tricep and arm as possible. So I'm going to grab the elasticon, and if you don't have good elasticon, it's going to move on you. So you might take a process of getting it to stick just right. And this is old elasticon, so might take a second, but wrapping it up the wrist, or up the brace, pushing it flush, pulling it tight. And now that I got it up to one side, let me get this side. Let's see if I can grab her. Once you got it, now I'm gonna really pull it. I'm gonna flex my bicep like before, and now wrap it. So now I've got the brace where I want it. Now it can't move up and down, side to side. You could probably ride with it like this, but we want to make it more secure and easier on your elbow. So now, what I like to do is put the rest of my elasticon on. So these 2 pieces of elasticon are about 2.5 feet long. And the reason why this one's longer is because that was the end of the roll, and I figured I would just use it all. So, same as before, fold it in half. I'm going to start at the bottom of the brace, or closest to the elbow, and I always just stuck it at the bottom of the brace. And then I'd pull this outside part across, and now I'm going to go up. I get the bend in your elbow that you're going to want to have when you ride. So pull that up, stick your tape to your brace, and now grab this outside piece, and like before, pull it into your body and pull it across and wrap it around. So now you've got your first X. So everyone has different preferences. I always did 2 pieces. Some guys did 3. They like to have that more coverage. So I'm gonna do the same thing here with this side. And taping with a brace is a little bit faster than taping without a brace. And it uses a lot less tape, so that's also a plus. So here, I'm gonna go about in the middle of the bicep now. I'm gonna throw this side over. I'm gonna go down a little bit. Sounds close to the elbow. Throw that across. Pull that across here. And like I said, if you have a brace, you've probably rode bareback horses enough that you already know how to tape your arm. But I just want to show you how I tape mine. So now, last con's on. I got the bend where I want it. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish up with a couple X's like I did before, and then I'm going to finish taping out my sleeve. So you don't need as much tape as I said before in the previous section on how to tape without a brace. But what I always did once I got my Alaskan on is I don't want the Alaskan to pop off, because if it's hot, if it's humid, whatever, it could come off. So what I'll do is I'll kind of maybe throw just like a safety wrap around the bottom piece of Alaskan. Then I'll throw a safety wrap around the top, so at least they don't move around. So now that I know my Alaskan's secure, it's not going nowhere. Now I'm gonna do my X's. Just like before, I'm gonna start here. And always kind of straighten, now that you got your Alaskan secured, now you know it's not gonna move. Something, straighten your arm so you at least know it goes straight. Like I said, you don't wanna have it 90 all the time. You wanna make sure that it at least goes straight at a minimum. Now this might be a good time too. If you guys enjoy this video, you should like and subscribe to the channel, because there's gonna be a lot more fun things coming. Like I said before, try to get, 4 to 5, 6 to 7 of those little strips and have them spread out. What's great about a brace is that it really distributes that pressure really nice across your forearm and your bicep, so there's not pinching or any form of like forearm splint. So do this opposite side really quick. Looks really rough right now, but once we get finished, it'll look real nice. One more. And you can always double this up too if you want a little bit more protection across there. So now I got my X on there. Now what I'm gonna do is just wrap it up, make it look nice and pretty, and tape that X down. So you can either go back and do one strip at a time, or you can just wrap it. But with a brace, it's gonna be really securing you, so you don't really need to make it all look real pretty. Actually, I just told you it looked pretty, but oops, broke it off a little bit, but let's get that done. Okay, so that's the bottom part. Now we're just gonna wrap the top part of the brace and call it good. I start up high at the bicep and kind of work my way down, but it really don't matter if we work top to bottom or bottom to top. And like for this, I always like to flex my bicep, because that's how it's gonna be when I'm riding. There you go. So got everything secured. Brace is on. It's not going to be moving around forward or back. My elbow can go dang near straight. Like I said before, the brace was set at where it goes almost straight. But now I can still get into my bareback riding shape, slide it into shirts, and also the brace, don't wear a medium shirt. Make sure that at least, if you wear a medium, wear a large, because you're going to be able to get this brace in there. You don't want to rip a nice shirt. So anyway, I hope that helps you out, you future bareback riders or your intermediate bareback riders that don't know how to tape your arm for bareback riding. Let me know if this helped. Leave a comment.